Hello and welcome to another episode of Israeli Frenemies. With me today in the studio is Yariv Oppenheimer, a former director of the Israeli Peace Now movement. I am Akiva Bigman from Israel Hayom. Yariv, we have a stormy week this week, and surprisingly it's because of the weather and not because of politics.
Yeah, actually it was a very intensive here in Tel Aviv and other places in the country. In the middle of the spring, when we felt almost the summer, suddenly so much rain in such a small time. However, there is also sad news coming from some places in Israel where people are being hurt, even died during the floods. And we hope here that everything will be okay and people will not lose their life anymore and will be protected, although the weather is dangerous. But let's start with our own issues that are interesting and stormy as well. The tension in the area is rising up as we are getting close to D-Day, the day that Trump will make the decision whether the United States is going to remain in the deal with Iran, the deal that blocks Iran from having nuclear bomb, or whether America is going to go out of this deal and actually to cancel it, because if America is not part of the deal, there is no deal. We heard this week also the Iranians are saying out loud that there will be some result, some things will happen if the United States is going to pull out from this deal. And we also keep in mind that the Iranians said that they are going to react to the bombing of the airspace, the airfield in Syria that was mentioned that Israel attacked it. So a lot of things going on regarding Iran. And I have to tell you honestly that I feel that it's a very dangerous game that we are playing, not just Israel, but also the Trump administration. And I hope that the Iran deal, although it is not a perfect deal, it's going to remain, and America is going to remain in the deal, because without it, Iran will have the green light to do whatever they like, including having nuclear bomb maybe in 1 year from now. What is your take on that, Akiva?
Yeah, well, I agree. It's very dangerous waters, and everybody should be very careful and sensitive. The thing about the Iran deal is that it didn't block Iranians from achieving the bomb, as you said. It just postponed it in 10 years, and we already burned 3 years out of those 10. I mean, we're getting pretty close to the time where the Iranian regime could have a nuclear bomb, even with the deal. So now the big question to me is not if we maintain the deal or not. It depends. The big question is what's going to be imposed instead of the deal. Because the alternative to the deal is not a war, like the Obama administration always said. The alternative to the deal is either a better deal or a better international environment, or maybe a pack of steps and moves that can put some pressure on the Iranian regime and stop them from achieving the bomb on the long run. And the things we need to do are, first of all, the United States has to step in to the region as a power that is present here. It doesn't mean exactly to have ground forces in every state, but it has to be involved, has to care about what happens in the region. It has to have an opinion and a stance on the different issues. And the Iranian regime has to know that whatever they do in the regime affects global policy, and the U.S. is involved in that. That's the first thing.
But Akiva, you saw that the Trump policy is actually to move out from area of conflict, including the Middle East, and we just saw what happened with Syria. There was some reports about new chemical weapon. Then Trump made this big promise about the huge amounts of missiles, the new sophisticated missiles that are going to, new and brand new, that are going to attack Syria. And eventually we saw that there was a very limited attack. Even before it was over, Trump said, okay, that's it, I made my point, I'm going out of the game. And Israel is stuck with Russia, Iran, and Turkey next to the border north.
Exactly.
So I'm not making a lot of hope. I don't have a lot of hope to look at Trump and to think that he will going to be the Messiah.
Sadly,
I think that it's mostly about us. And when we are in such a sensitive situation to call to the Americans, and this is what the Israeli government is doing all the time, out loud and quietly, saying to the America, pull out of the deal, pull out of the deal. I just don't get it, why we need to push ourselves into a war with Iran and why we need to allow Iran to restart the nuclear program. I think it's against the Israeli interest.
Well, so first of all, I share your disappointment from Trump's policy, because Trump is continuing the Obama policy in this aspect, as he's isolationist in a lot of senses. He wants to pull out, and what he does, he shoots missiles occasionally when some people cross red lines. I think the United States should be more involved, not only by drawing red lines and imposing them, which Obama didn't do, but pushing forward their policy, their view of the region, their view of the world. Trump's administration is doing some in this direction, not as much as I would hope. And as far as a war between Israel and Iran, I think this is a matter of time. Iran is enforcing its proxies in the region. Hamas and Hezbollah are getting stronger by the day. Israel, for now, is acting very moderate, only attacking when it has to, also according to a red line doctrine. And I think that's what we can do. We should not attacking the Iranian force buildup in Syria and Lebanon will lead in the long run to way worse situation than attacking the world.
You know, Akiva, that there are many sensitive conflicts in the region, in the world, that are not being solved by war, but also being solved or even being sustained by political and diplomat tools. I'm not so sure that we are doomed and there is no way to escape a war between Israel and Iran. We can avoid it. But the question is how we are going to avoid it and what is the interest of Israel. And I think that the interest of Israel is to be smart and to be also careful with Iran. Not to bomb every time that we think that we have the right to do so, because eventually even the Iranian regime, even if they don't want a war, they will have to react because of their public opinion. And I think that we need to be very careful playing this game and not creating escalation that will not serve our interest. A war with Iran, we have nothing to win, nothing to gain.
History
have
has taught us
things to lose. We are not fighting about territories, and every missile that they are going to fire, they can buy after it another one. So I don't see the point. Why to go directly to the war?
The only thing I want to say is history taught us that the way to avoid war sometimes is to have strong deterrence. Bombing occasional force buildups is not exactly war. It doesn't have to lead to war. And if you do it smartly and in the right way, with the international community behind you, backing you, which is the situation now, you can maybe avoid war. On the other hand, letting the bad guys build up their forces untroubled, when you trying to talk and tweet instead of using your force to stop them, will send the wrong message, which the message will be that you are weak. You are not willing to fight. You're not willing to stand by your red lines, your principles, and that will invite the war that you are trying to avoid. I think history has taught us this lesson several of times, and Israel is following this lesson. Finally, there's one historical lesson Israel is following in the right way, and I'm happy.
History shows us also that there are conflicts that can be solved without.
Well, as every Friday in the last month, also tomorrow there's supposed to be more protests on the Gaza fence. These protests will come in the background of earlier this week, a Hamas drone scientist was killed or assassinated in Malaysia, supposedly by Israeli operatives, even though nobody claimed formal responsibility in the act. So we see these things are connected. There is a pressure, I will say maybe a diplomatic or a public opinion kind of pressure by Hamas on the fence with these demonstrations. And they're widening their world organization with scientists in different countries and trying to maybe build up the force in different ways. And we can see both of these events actually connect maybe to a new modus operandi of Hamas. And this brings our situation with Hamas and way of dealing with it to a different level. What's your take on this?
You know that we are talking about the demonstration, about the assassination, and it's important to speak about it, and also what is the policy toward this demonstration. But eventually there's the bigger story, and the bigger story is the relationship between us and the Palestinians. And when we are only fighting the Palestinians without creating a political channel that can lower down the flames and create some kind of a hope for each side, eventually we will find ourselves debating over and over again about violence and not talking about changing the reality. Now, regarding the violence, I think that the policy of Israel at the first week of the demonstration in Gaza was totally wrong. We saw many casualties. We saw more than 20 people being killed by live bullets being fired by the soldiers toward these civilians, because once they came to this demonstration, they didn't come with weapons. And we see that even the army is changing a bit the policy. Every week, the number of casualties is going down, and I don't think that it's only by a coincidence. I think that the criticism of people in the peace camp inside Israel about the amounts of casualties and about the way that you treat these demonstrations made an effect. And I hope that tomorrow and next week we will be less enthusiastic about using live bullets and trying to use other tools in order to prevent these people to go and to cross over the border. But for sure, this is a demonstration. I don't see it as a terrorist attack. I don't see it as an attack on Israel that risks the life of Israelis. I see it as a demonstration, and this is how we need to handle it.
Well, first thing I want to say that about these casualties, about 80% of them were counted as associated or operators of Hamas or Fatah. So not all of them are uninvolved civilians.
But not in the demonstration,
we need to put this. I let you talk, so please. We need to put this in context. That's the first thing. Now, as far as maybe a longer or maybe wider vision to Gaza, I do share your vision and hope that something deeper should change in Gaza. But we need to know that the deeper thing that has to change in Gaza and the real cause for this situation and for the bad situation that the Gazan citizens are in is the Hamas regime. There's no way around it. When Israel went out of Gaza, which I opposed, the idea was that Fatah will take over, and Fatah was supposed to be the more moderate part that we had a relationship with according to the Oslo Accords. 1 minute. We had a relationship with them according to the Oslo Accords, and the idea was, the hope, the vision was that we'll have some kind of relationship with a Fatah state, which I don't agree, but people at least thought will be some kind of moderate, modern national state. Hamas took over, and things went down the drain since then, and I think we should all share a vision and maybe join forces and try to think how we can help the Gazans get rid of this terrible regime and get a better life, because no Israeli army will attack the Gazans if they stop attacking us. There's no question about that.
Akiva, you cannot dictate to the Palestinian who is going to run their life and who is going to govern them. And Hamas, and I'm not a big fan of Hamas, the opposite, I see Hamas as the enemies of peace, but Hamas, they are in control. And I think that eventually you cannot say to the Palestinian, I will make your decision who is going to lead you. Once Hamas is there, Israel should do its best in order to take down the siege over Gaza, and this is a political siege, and to allow the Gaza people to start a new life. You know, for 11 years we are putting Gaza under siege. A new generation of children is becoming now teenagers, and all they know is the siege over Gaza. This is totally unacceptable, and it's also not helping the Israelis' interest. Eventually, it creates more hatred and more support to Hamas, not to the moderate Fatah.
But Yariv, what you call political siege is a siege that when we let it go, or when we make it easier, we see more cement coming into Gaza to build those terror tunnels. We see more missiles, more weapons. Israel caught several of times weapon ships trying to come to Gaza in different occasions. So it's not a political siege. You cannot say that. It's a military siege. And it's not a secret that Israel expects and wants the regime in Gaza to change. That's what they said before.
It's not just military. It's the reason for that is that they want the Hamas government to fall down. And the result of this siege is totally the opposite, that Hamas becomes stronger because they're having the control over the crossover, and they're having the control over the people. And I think that we need to take down the siege regarding economically, and we should allow Gaza to develop some kind of economy. Otherwise, we are going to suffer more than we have to, because the people in Gaza, when they are hungry, when they have nothing to lose, then they will be more enthusiastic to attack Israel. But if scandal happened this week when Natalie Portman, the famous Jewish and also Israeli actress, decided not to come to Israel to achieve a prize from the Prime Minister. And she, at the beginning, she said that she is not going to come, and she didn't really explain why. And then there were some blames that she is in favor of the BDS movement. And then she made a statement saying that she is not coming because she don't want to show support to Benjamin Netanyahu. She disagrees with the policy of the government of Israel. She likes Israel, but she disagrees with the policy, and this is the reason why she cannot afford herself to come to this ceremony and to be part of it. Now, it's very interesting because everything related to famous actress is always interesting, and politics and showbiz is always a fun thing to discuss. But there is a serious issue here, because it's not just Natalie Portman. It is many Jewish people in the United States, in North America. They feel that the values that this government is promoting are not the values, the core values of this community. We are talking about occupation, we are talking about settlements, we are talking about lower the democratic nature of Israel, and even the policy toward the people coming from Africa, the refugees, the willingness of the government to do whatever we can in order to throw them out of the country. I think that eventually many Jewish people in the United States are saying, if these are the values of the Jewish state, I don't want support in the Jewish state. I would like to disconnect myself from that, and this is dangerous for us.
Well, for me, this is a tragedy of Natalie Portman and a lot of segments of the American Jewry. Natalie Portman could have done the exact opposite of what she did. This is what happened. She said she will not show up to the ceremony with the Prime Minister. She was blamed to be part of the BDS. Segments in the BDS took credit for her move. So she basically, without wanting to, I accept that, without wanting to, she put herself on the BDS side. And then she had to declare that she's not there. She had to say, I love Israel. I only have a political issue with the Israeli government. I'm not with the BDS. She had to clarify and disconnect herself from the BDS. She should have done the exact opposite. She should have come to the ceremony, get the prize, shake hands with Benjamin Netanyahu, which I must tell you is not that bad. A lot of people in the world would love to do that. Shake hands with Netanyahu, and then when the guys on the progressive left in the United States, her friends in Hollywood, accuse her of being a Netanyahu supportist, of taking credit for Netanyahu, etc., then she would have published in her Instagram account, I love Israel. All my friends are in Israel, but I'm against Netanyahu policies, but I came there because I love Israel. And then she would have put herself on the camp of the pro-Israel instead of by mistake, because she didn't think till the end, by mistake, she put herself on the anti-Israel camp. And I want to say one more thing. Yeah. This is true, what you said, that this is wider than Natalie Portman. This is part of a general movement in certain segments of the American Jewry elite, Jewry in the United States, which are very progressive, very democratic. Natalie Portman was at the Women March against Trump.
Yeah, but I don't think it's just an elite. I think we are talking about a lot of people in the Jewish communities, and many of the leaders of the Jewish communities, and they are progressive, that's true. And, you know, if Natalie Portman will take your advice, so either no one will listen to the criticism, because if you are just saying, listen, I came, I smiled, I played the game, I supported Netanyahu in his government because they use me in order to show
it's not
how
support
great
of the
in
government,
Israel.
it's support of
Just
the
a second.
state.
And just to say one sentence in Instagram, I think this is not a criticism. And she wanted to shake the boss and to create some balagan, you know, in Hebrew you say balagan, to create a mess so people will pay attention. And second, just imagine that she's coming here, taking the prize, and then she has to speak. And in front of the Prime Minister, she will say all the bad and negative things about that. And then people here will say, how dare you to come here to take the prize and then to say these things in our face. So I think that she didn't have a choice. By the way, much easier for her was to come, to smile, to get a prize, maybe to say something that it's a bit criticized and to go back to the United States. I think she chose the difficult side because she has the moral issue. And she supports Israel, but she cannot support the policy of the government of Israel. And you know what? She's not the only one.
I think she's not the only one. By the way, David Grossman, who got the Israel Prize, is another example. And he came to the prize. I don't know if he shook hands with Netanyahu, but Netanyahu was there. And he's a Netanyahu hater way more than Natalie Portman is. But I want to say something else. The thing that we see with these portions of the Jewish community in the United States, which I don't know how many of them there are, but sure, they're very powerful. And they're the elite, as I said. They are in love with Israel. I accept that. They're in love with Israel, of the progressive vision of Israel, which doesn't exist anymore because the Israeli people are not there. So there's a gap, a widening gap between their vision of the progressive Israel that never existed and the actual Israel, the people here who vote to the Knesset. And then what happens is they say it's the government. It's not the government. It's the people who vote in elections. That's the government. That's us.
Fair enough. It's not all the people. It's some of the people. Sometimes it's the majority of people. Although I disagree, I don't think that everyone that voted for Netanyahu are supportive Netanyahu in all this issue. But you know, this is exactly what friends need to do. If you are outside and you see your friend doing mistakes and supporting a government that should not be supported, so friends should tell each other, you are making a mistake. This is not my value.
This price is not a government price, it's a national price. And that's why her mistake was not to come. She should have come and then say a disclaimer, or maybe she can wait an op-ed in the New York Times.
Akiva, it was a pleasure as always to be here with you and to dialogue with you. I hope you will have a great week and a great weekend.
Same here, Yariv, and I hope the same for you. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.